and in the absence of which you now begin to create these issues. Now, you can sit back and argue that why is the vice president, that doesn't he now belong to the political elite? Why is he making the statements? But it doesn't make it any less true. And I'm very happy that he's coming out, especially at this time, to make these statements with the issues that you're seeing around insecurity, that you're seeing around corruption, that you're seeing around failing infrastructure, and you're seeing around failing economy. These four things are all man-made issues, have nothing to do with natural disasters.
Yes.
It's because we have ignored the certain systems and the certain processes that allow you to stay in these institutions, in the absence of which you have the problem and the situation that you find yourself in what we call Nigeria today. So it's a fantastic article. I encourage everybody to go read it. And I think it's important we begin to have very hard conversations around what it means to be a leader. And if you want to belong to that particular political class where you call yourself an elite, whether it's through economic means or through leading in government positions, it comes at a particular price. It comes at a price where you have to sacrifice a lot of your thinking about how the world operates in order for things to work. If it's something you cannot handle or something you do not equally aspire to, then you need to back down and allow those who have the courage, who have the wisdom, and have the right intentions to do it. And I think that's part of the issue, is that we've made these positions way too lucrative, and you have individuals who are greedy, who are ready to now destroy institutions that were barely existing to begin with, in order for them to benefit directly for themselves. So we need to turn that thinking around, change the narrative, attitude, behavior, mentally adjusting the way that we think and we approach certain things, because without which we're just going to continue to have this problem in perpetuity.
Thank you so much. And it's so easy to to blame, forgetting that there's the usual proverbial statement that says when you point to one finger, three fingers are pointing back. Really, it should be considered. One of the things that should be considered is the stance and body language of the government towards policies, economic and otherwise.
All right, let's take a comment from ITK in Lek, who says President Muhammadu Buhari has spoken well by rejecting the Igbos succession move, but hailing the economic contribution in Nigeria. While Onoche is of the opinion that the vice president just talks and doesn't have confidence in his leadership qualities, and then talks about the president being far removed from reality. And then Chika Agina.
From Marina says on the statement of General Muhammadu Buhari that it's unthinkable for an Igbo man to leave Nigeria is quite laughable. There is no gainsaying that Igbos have successful businesses in Nigeria, but my question is, with collapse of security and lack of enabling environment to thrive, will the Igbo community, would they have been able to be where they are today? For me, let Buhari do the needful by applying deodorant when needful and spray insecticide when necessary.
I think, the last thing on this thing, I think it was an opportunity missed yesterday, right? And it harps back to that sort of elitist thinking.
Thank you.
And it's easy. Over the years, we've made excuses saying his handlers who prepared this thing, who looked at everything that was being said. It was an opportunity missed. You went to a part of the country where you know there's agitation. Speak to it, even if it's only skin deep and you don't,
At least
really
touch on that issue,
it.
yeah.
Realize that, this thing is a pain point. Give them reassurances. Tell them what they want to hear, even if it's not skin deep. Address it. Don't be so, above everything. It sounds so removed. And say you're doing well in business. I mean, come on, you should be happy.
But it's also a very irresponsible and borderline dangerous statement when you do that. It's like, let's use civil rights, for example. When you have Black Lives Matters and individuals who are still clamoring for civil rights,
say they're successful black people.
And then you now come out, your response to that is, well, after all, we had a black president, so why are you complaining? That's pretty much the same thing, and it is extremely divisive. So even though he's coming at it from the perspective where he may not have ill intentions, but it's a missed opportunity to actually address the issues that people are clamoring for.
Do these people read these speeches and listen to them?
Right.
Because in that sense, you're fostering dissonance. You're supposed to be singing the same song in his words.
Oh, at the minimum, acknowledging it.
Thank you, because he used the words, and I will quote him. Speak to them in the language they understand. Was this addressed in that language?
You know what? Let me just ask you both, because you're, as always, analysis, sound, and intelligent. So tell me, if you were the president and you had this opportunity to go to Imo State, which is, there's a sit-at-home order from IPOB. Many of them have obeyed it. And you have an opportunity.
You do not disobey it.
Yes, you have an opportunity to go in there at this time as president. You have their ears for a few minutes. What would you have said?
Well, I would clearly address, the burning issues. right? I'm hoping that even if it was a rented crowd, yeah, but address it because it's to be reported in the news, but address the burning issues, right? Paint a picture of not just the future, but in the immediate. What are the things that we can do in the immediate? What can you look at and hold on to say, things are turning around? So in the next half year, in the next 6 months to a year, these are the things we're doing, and do those things. What we need to do first is essentially look for measures to build trust first, because there is a lack of trust. The social contract is broken between the governed and the people who are governed. Look for ways to build that social trust once again. In the East, it's totally destroyed. Simple things. They might not even be things that are addressing the main issue, but that I said I would do this, and that I do it, starts to build some trust. And then when you start to paint a picture of the future, there is more likelihood that people would believe that. But today, literally everything that was said at the time of courtship, none of it is near none of it is reality today.
When he was wearing his yago and everything else.
Well,
He wore a shaggy yesterday, which is why I said
He wore it
yesterday with some very snazzy, some like peach or pink pants. Really cool.
You look good in them.
Yeah, really cool. Good
But that
stuff.
even if statement was loud, really loud. Let's move on to this next story. The Premium Times has this report. Nigerian Army arrests wanted Boko Haram top commander. His name, Yawi Modu. He said he was recently declared wanted by the force, but there was a statement released yesterday by the Army spokesman, Oyema Nwachukwu, the Brigadier General, said the troops also raided an improvised explosive device materials hub in Borno and Yobe states. Found some materials about that. But tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good anytime any commander or significant person within Boko Haram is apprehended. It's a positive for us. The concern and worry always is that as you take one leader, how many people are willing or ready to replace him? You get so that's the only concern. So for me, this is one of those statements for those who still want to live in the bubble of Boko Haram has been defeated, or we no longer have terrorism within our borders, and everything is now labeled as banditry, right? It's just a reminder that there still is Boko Haram. We're doing with the resources that the military has. I believe they're doing their very best, and there's nothing else to say. The struggle continues. It's like a regular story in Nigeria now, which is unfortunate.
There's something irregular about, actually, it just makes sense in security terms. Like they mentioned here in the statements released, they said the ISWAP criminals facing the reality of obvious depletion are desperately acquiring IED materials to make explosive devices with which to unleash terror. They discovered hundreds of bags of urea that was kept in warehouses.
Yeah, used for explosive
I think that statement is instructive, because if they are, one of the signals in security terms when terrorists are getting desperate is just to look for devices to cause mass destruction in areas that they can't necessarily meet soft targets, so to speak.
Sure, but the creation of IEDs is not even, why it didn't, okay, in that part, what stuck out to me, it's not the creation of IEDs, because that's how they operate. The idea of terrorism is, maximum, do one activity, maximum damage, maximum impact, especially the noise of it. When I say the noise, is bigger than even actually probably what happened. And IEDs and improvised roadside bombs are, critical to that, especially because they're improvised and made at home. The thing that stood out to me is usually what happens is, again, it's an indication of how broken down our intelligence or observations, our powers of observations are. Usually what happens is when they notice that people who are, first of all, being watched, the question is, are we watching anyone? Start to purchase certain materials that by themselves look, mundane, but the combination of which can create an explosive. It is at that point that they go in, and swooping, and
at the warehouse.
It's not
After
at the
they've
warehouse
stored it many months.
after it has been acquired. It's not from the dispensary. It is from the point at which they are acquiring. I'm like, okay, why is this person buying these materials? Let's watch them closely, and at the right opportunity, you go in before it becomes a danger, not when it is at the forefront. These guys purchase these things. Now, there's supply chains. There's money coming in somewhere. There's money changing hands. Yes,
Suspicious
there's money
inflows.
coming in. They're buying it now. Why aren't we stopping it there?
Thank you so much for that. The Guardian has this interesting story. Waji, I'm sure you'll be very excited about this one. Amid VAT
You sure?
uproar, the state sue federal government over sharing of stamp duties. What does this entail? So the subtle campaign for restructuring through fiscal federalism was raised a notch higher yesterday as the attorney generals of the 36 states came together to sue the Attorney General of the office, he says, or rather of the Federation, over alleged failure of the federal government to remit funds generated from stamp duties into state accounts. It's supposed to be going through the TSA, right? Is there something else I'm missing?
Yeah, but even more fundamental, and I'm always clamoring for this, you cannot have these two parallel systems in coexistence. You just can't, and it's what creates these problems, where you have federal government oversight into the nitty-gritty of even tax collection within the states. That's where the problem is. And that's what this is actually about, which is why all 36 states, I'm not sure if FCC is included or not, are suing the federal government with regards to the remittances of stamp duty. The problem is this, right? There are many ways you can go about it. But essentially, in a system where you have states that are run by executive governors, the states will collect all of these things and then remit to the federal government, not the other way around. Okay? And I know this is controversial, but given that I've studied this for a very long time, that is how it's supposed to be done in a proper situation where you have states, which is why I'm always clamoring for statehoods. So your states will collect their various levels of tax, which have to do at the local level, have to do at the state level, and have to do at the federal level. Then upon an agreed upon time, whether it's monthly or quarterly, the states will now remit the ones that are due to the federal government at that particular time. What is happening in Nigeria is that you have parallel systems that are coexisting. The federal government is collecting taxes, which I've never quite understood.
Company tax.
And no, I don't even know why the collection of that is happening, because it's meant to actually be routed through the accounts of the state. And that's where the actual breakdown is. So we have to go back and be very intellectually honest with ourselves about what system do we want. We have too much federal government oversight into everything. And then you now begin to have situations where states are just now a bit confused with regards to identity. How can a state have an IGR, but then yet the federal government are remitting stamp duty taxes to them? It just doesn't make any sense.
Let me even put it in clearer perspective. Based on the Governor Yeson Wike's message yesterday, he posted on Facebook. He says in June, 15.1 billion was collected as taxes in River State, but 4.7 billion was given to that state. 46.4 billion was collected by Lagos, but Lagos only got 9.3 billion.
No, you said the Kano want to.
Oh, he said, Kano generated 2.8 billion and got 2.8 billion, the exact amount.
So, yeah.
These are the issues.
I'm trying not to go there, but you see,
Yes.
evidence is evidence,
Yeah.
and it now becomes a more confusing situation, because when you put it out in layman terms, it now begins to bring up these sentiments of, okay, so why is it that particular regions that are run primarily by this particular
Some things don't need intelligent
they don't need,
analysis.
I know, but I'm trying not to go there for a particular reason, which is why I want to focus on the actual issue, which is to actually make it a state-run enterprise that is now funneled back to the federal government. Because when it's now done the other way, and you now begin to see the situations that Tunde just brought about, it doesn't need the intelligence to see what's going on, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Wike said, I would not be governor forever. Let the right thing be done.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
it.
about me, it's about the system.
That's it, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, thank you very much. It's dominated the news this week for obvious reasons. That's the VAT issue. And now, of course, they're now with a fine-tooth comb. The governors are looking at all the other things that ought to have been done at state level.
Fine-tooth
So I
comb
think
is
we're
right.
going to have a few more things come up like that. Sunday, PIA, that's the Petroleum Industry Act. Oil marketers push for subsidy removal within 6 months. This is coming in from the new chairman of MOMAN, that's the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Olumide Adeosun. He says on behalf of the oil marketers, they're saying within 6 months, subsidy should be removed. I see the look on your face. Number one is this even possible?
No, the look on my face.
Before.
The look on my face simply has to do with the name, the acronym we finally landed
MOMAN.
with. PIA. First of all,
PIA,
MOMAN.
okay.
We're good with that. It's the PIA. For over a decade, we had PIB. Then there were some variations to that, but it's PIA. To me, it's instructive that MoMA has to write that the tenets of something that was signed into law need to be executed. It's instructive. It goes even beyond the PIA in a sense, and adherence. It even touches on last story. Things are in law, but nobody's following through.
Yeah.
So I can't even blame Moma for saying that, okay, now this law is in place, so guys, this is what we must do and this is how we should do it. So that's the first instructive thing. Now, but obviously, naturally, whenever we hear, deregulation of the downstream sector, the first thing that we think about, I mean, the common man, you and I on the street is, the cost of buying fuel
Of course.
is going to go up, and naturally, and then the knock-on effect that has on everything else.
Yeah.
We've already suffered quite a bit already with inflation, especially food inflation through the year. But these bullets, the bullets that we must bite at some point. Many argue this is the only way, the common man again shares the national cake. But is it really? Is it one of those long-term things that's to our benefit? Subsidies are not. So let's deregulate. Let proper market forces come into play.
Do you think, though,
and let's
sorry,
liberate that sector, hopefully.
to make an argument for the other side, do you think that good idea, wrong timing, because of the economic realities of
Yeah.
many Nigerians?
Yeah, that's why I spoke on the inflation thing. But you see, that's the thing. Those are the loopholes that you create. The law says one thing, and saying, you can't do it now. But this is what the law says. Unless you have specific provisions within there that say, there's a lever, maybe there cannot be an increase or change. Anything can be done to affect the price of the product of oil by more than a certain percent if inflation is, there are a bunch of parameters perhaps, but those things, if they don't exist within the law and provision, it's right to. So one thing is the law, the other is the political will to see it through, and that's where we are.
Absolutely. Thank you. Idoze on YouTube says federal oversight, so going to your story, YGS, to VAT is a result of the military oversight we had for years.
Exactly. Yes, and we need to be honest with ourselves. What kind of country do we want to run? We can go back to that era where everything comes from the center, or we can completely, decentralize and practice proper statehood. We just have to decide what we want to do. We just can't do both.
We're still in that era where everything comes from the center, by the way.
No, today you have to space it out. So don't. There are no secrets.
I said we're still in that era where everything comes from the center.
Center. Yeah,
But then we have
Absolutely.
state, we have governors, which doesn't make sense. But
All right, let's go on to education. So ASU, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, yesterday told Nigerians hold Buhari responsible for another academic crisis. They're saying they've tagged it, they've put everything down under the heading of the irresponsibility of the government. And this was coming in from the coordinator about the zone of the union, Professor Oyebamiji Oyegoke, alongside some of his colleagues, who have highlighted that Nigerians, yes, we've come off a long strike after going to the negotiation table with the FG, federal government. However, it looks like we might still go back to going on strike because they haven't acted responsibly. Please break this down for us.
No, but that is the story. There's really nothing to break down. The ASU and the federal government arrived at a particular negotiation agreement, and then it's not been honored. And that will now mean that if it's not honored by a particular time, they're going to go back on strike. That is literally the story. There's no further expansion of it beyond that. But the question is, why are we here? Why do we even get here to begin with? That's the main issue, and it's going back to pretty much everything we've been talking about all day long, and it's about this constant need for us to rule Nigeria the way that we rule Nigeria. Education, in 2021 going into 2022, I'm sorry, it's no longer a privilege, it's a right. And the fact that there isn't a concerted attention to be able to exercise that particular right of a human being, of every Nigerian within the confines of this territorial space that we call our country, is a problem. So the fact that the Ministry of Education is not creating an enabling environment for private and public institutions to be able to thrive by making sure your teachers and your, and these individuals are not paid on time, whatever allowances and remunerations are not executed on time, it's a gigantic problem. Because when people go on strike, we know the knock-on effects of people's development with regards to time. We know the knock-on effects of students sitting at home for a long time. We know the knock-on effects of all these different things. We can mention them from now till tomorrow. But given that education, I'm sorry, is not a priority in Nigeria, that's why you have these situations. So frankly speaking, I do not blame ASU. Because these people, how are they going to live? I mean, you're talking about 9 months. If people have not been paid certain things, how do you want them to survive? So I don't blame them for going on strike. But once again, we have to ask the right questions. Why are we here again? I am a big proponent of this, and I will stand by this for as long as I can. But it has to be about the states. The states have to take control of their education. All the federal government has to do is provide the enabling environment to make sure things are equitable and things are fair. But the states have to take complete responsibility to educate the citizens of their states.
Federal government also needs to take their hands out of the state pockets.
Thank you.
So would you say that
So they have the money to do
some are taking
Right.
their hands off? Should the federal government take their hands off education totally and just
No,
empower states?
no,
take their
that's
hands
not
out of the state's pockets.
states' pockets. There's
Okay.
a big difference. So what the federal government should do through the Ministry of Education is to provide laws that make sure that you have equitable education, transactions within states, to make sure that you have fairness, to make sure that there's a curriculum that speaks towards national character, that speaks towards what it means to be a Nigerian, that speaks towards how we are developed as a people. That is what the Ministry of Education is meant to do. And like Tunde just wonderfully said, take your hands out of state pockets, let the states now run the execution in terms of the administration of the education, which now have to do with paying of salaries and et cetera, et cetera. I do not know anywhere in the world except it's like some kind of kleptocracy where the federal government is directly paying teachers' salaries in universities. It's absolute madness. So it's either way kleptocracy or a fake democracy. I almost said a bad word, or a fake democracy. I'll just leave it there.
Thank you very much. All right, we have just a few seconds left, but Tunde, I'd like you to touch on this one. Foreigners to activate SIMs every 6 months, says NCC.
It's an interesting one, yeah. To me, it seems more of an inconvenience. What do you use to register, your SIM? It's biometrics, it's your name. Is it likely to change every 6 months?
I mean, here they
I
say
know
that
there's
you won't have
evolution,
to.
but human beings
yeah.
don't evolve that quickly.
I don't think
And
your
the hassle
DNA
of
evolves.
even the hassle of changing your name is not that straightforward. So I think it's more of an inconvenience. And well, they realize they said it would only be for 2 years. So I'm wondering what's the point? Why can't you even just wait that 2 year period and then say you must, it's then like final. We like to make things, in my opinion, we just open another shop. This is the passport shop.
As
The
much
official
as we
price
love
is this.
committees, yeah.
It's down.
Looking for ways to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just open a shop on the guys.
It does. Yes, the truth is, we will get to true federalism at some point. I hope we get to see it. What we and Lagos State government have done or started will make this happen.
I hope so.
I hope so. All right. The problem of education is subsidy. All these subsidies regime killing the system, says Sylvester. That's how we end today's show. Big thanks to our analysts. Thank you, Waji. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tunde. Waji is at the corporate MC. That's the corporate with a K, and Tunde is at Big Coops on Instagram and other social
And the
media
other bird
platforms.
that blue bird up.
Tunde, please.
The birdie.
Yeah, law by anyway, they said they didn't. They just said they didn't say no part of the law. It
They have
hadn't
said
been
a lot
enforced.
of things.
There are many bluebird apps. So.
So, thank you very much. At 8:10, we go on to Lagos Talks 901, but it's not the way we do it from Monday to Thursday. Today is a Feel Good Friday, so it's going to be a Feel Good Friday question for you to call us and respond to. At 9 o'clock, we bring you the Locker Room 981 with Tega. Stay tuned.
Union Bank, your simpler, smarter bank.
I just think it gets